Hello and welcome to CENOS Antenna Design standalone lesson about geometry building. In this video we will learn on how to use CENOS Geometry Editor to build geometry of your antenna for the simulation. To build our geometry we need to first open the Geometry Editor. In Geometry Approach selection click Geometry Editor FreeCAD and click the play button. Be sure to save the case before continuing, and now the FreeCAD is being opened. FreeCAD's interface is quite simple. Here you can find the shortcut icons for sketch, part and mesh workbenches. Here on the top is the toolbar, which will help you to create your geometry, and here on the left side is the model tree, where you will find every geometrical object created by you. Let's start with the basics. 2D sketches. When you open FreeCAD, you will be by default redirected to the part workbench. So to create a sketch, you need to first switch to the Sketcher workbench right here. Here you need to click New Sketch, select the orientation of the sketch and click OK. Now you can actually start to draw your sketch. On the upper toolbar you will find a lot of different tools for drawing, as well as different constraints to define equal lines, specify size of your geometry, and so on. You can dynamically drag and reposition your geometry if necessary, and once you are done, close the sketch to leave the sketch edit mode. As you can see, our newly created sketch can be seen in both Preview window and in the Model Study dropdown. If you want to change or edit your sketch, right-click on it and click Edit Sketch. Often you will need to create the sketch on an already existing object. For example, for patch antennas, you will need to draw the patch on the substrate layer. In such case, when you switch to the Sketcher workbench, you first need to select the surface on which you want to draw the sketch and only then click Create New Sketch. Click OK to the flat surface definition and you're good to go. Now you can simply draw your sketch and click Close. As you can see, we have successfully created the sketch on another volume object. Let's move on to volume objects. In Part Workbench for very basic shapes, FreeCAD has built-in tools called primitives, which you can find right here in the upper toolbar. They allow you to quickly generate and edit very basic shapes, such as boxes or cylinders. For example, if you are building a patch antenna, you can easily create the substrate by selecting the box primitive. The only thing you need to change is its size, so you simply click on the object in the model tree and change the respective dimension of the box. You can create more complex volume shapes as well. A very nice way to do that is with extrusion function, which helps to turn your sketches into 3D geometries. For example, if you are building a patch antenna and you want to create an actual layer for your patch, then you select the sketch of your patch, like this, and click Extrude. Now you only need to define the height of your extrusion, and you need to make sure that the Create Solid checkbox is also checked. And just click Apply. In this way, we have created a volume from previously drawn 2D sketch. Note that this works for every sketch as long as the sketch geometry is closed. A very useful thing to have is parameterized geometry. This way you can create geometry and dynamically change it through parameters, without the need to rebuild everything again. You can easily define parameters in CENOS parameters spreadsheet, right here, where you can use various units and/or mathematical equations for the values. For this example, let's create a parameter called height, and let's give it a value of 0.1 millimeter. Now let's get back to the view through the Study tab, and now we need to add this parameter to our geometry. Let's define the patch height with the newly created parameter. Now how to do that is we just need to click on the object that we want to parameterize. We need to find the value that we want to parameterize, so in this case that would be the height, and we replace this constant value with a parameter, which we can do by clicking right here. Now we just need to find the parameter, so we write CENOS parameters dot and the name of the parameter, which is height in this case, and we click OK. And you can see that the geometry is automatically updated based on the value of the parameter that we just applied to it. Once the geometry is done, you need to send it to CENOS. Just simply select the objects you will use, like this, and click Send Geometry to CENOS, up here. Now you can close FreeCAD and move back to CENOS interface to continue your simulation setup. Note that this works with imported geometries as well. If you don't want to modify your geometry, just import it and send it back to CENOS. By default, FreeCAD is necessary only for the geometry building, as the numerical mesh for your antenna is generated automatically when you calculate your simulation. However, in some cases, the automatic meshing might fail, and in such occasions, you will need to create your mesh manually. For this reason, let's take a look on how to mesh a very simple patch antenna manually. So right now we are at the part workbench with already created geometry. To build the mesh, we need to switch to the mesh workbench up here. Now we simply need to select the geometry we want to mesh, like this, and click Create Mesh. Mesh size will be automatically applied and the mesh calculated, like this. If you want to change the mesh size, you need to click on the respective submesh, here. And in the properties, change the characteristics value. Then, once you have adjusted the size, click Recalculate to regenerate your mesh. As you see, the mesh generally looks quite okay, but in our original geometry we had a patch drawn on the substrate, which is not resoluted through the mesh whatsoever. Because of this, we need to create the patch resolution ourselves. You can create mesh refinements for surfaces, edges, or even points. Simply select the geometry you want to refine, which is in our case the patch sketch, and click Refine Mesh up here. Now you just change the element size to what you need, so let's say 0.1, and click Create. Now you simply need to recalculate the case by clicking this Recompute Mesh button, and once the mesh is recalculated, the visualization will be updated as well. Once the mesh is done, click Send Mesh to CENOS right here to finalize your geometry and mesh setup. This is the end of the standalone lesson about geometry creation in FreeCAD. Thanks for watching!